Welcome back to Looking for Eve. I'm Adam, and on today's episode, I have 3 unique pieces of advice that you are not going to want to miss.
You're gonna have to sacrifice to get the girl that you want.
If you're looking for love, we'll stick around while Ashley, Omar, and Lee give us 3 unique perspectives on finding love and staying in love. Okay, this first piece of advice is not for the faint of heart. We're going to start with some brutal honesty from one of my best friends, Omar. If you're in your 30s or 40s and you've said, no, my life is fantastic, I don't need somebody else to come into my life, and if they do, well, I don't want them to screw up my life, and then later that night you're eating your dinner over the sink alone by yourself and then crying yourself to sleep, well, this advice goes out to you. Take it away, Omar.
For guys that are 30s up, you've been living life a certain way now for a while, and you're gonna have to sacrifice to get the girl that you want. Find the girl that you want to be with forever, and then start making the changes you have to make to be with her forever.
Such good advice from Omar. He always gives it blunt and direct. I cannot wait for you all to see his episode. That's coming out in a couple of weeks. Perfect advice for anybody like myself or anybody older that's, maybe stuck in their ways and needs to learn that, hey, you're going to have to make some sacrifices and stuff for the person that you want. Next up, we have my next door neighbor, and he also happens to be my childhood best friend, but we have Lee with some advice about finding the perfect person by working on yourself first.
I think that really helped me, and why it was the right time was that I was just so myself, and I just was becoming myself, and I was so this is who I am. And that doesn't mean be inflexible. I'm not changing. This is who I am. You can always change. You're always going to grow and change. But I think just being very comfortable with who you are, learning who you are, and being comfortable with who you are. And once you are really that, then you're going to attract the right person. You can always date and you'll always attract people. But I think you'll attract the right person when you're for you, when you're when you feel you're the most comfortable in yourself, and when you're going at that and you don't really care about, because then it's then it becomes well, I don't really care what happens with this stuff. People always joke if you when you say I'm not dating anyone anymore, I'm dating myself forever, and that's when you find your person. Well, I think there's some truth to that, because I never said those things, and I never treated it like that, but I think there's truth to that, because I think then the focus becomes on just becoming a best version of yourself, and really leaning into the things that you want to do, and the things you're passionate about, and the things that your purpose in life, and the things you want to accomplish. And when you have all those things, that's just attractive in general to the people, and your interests will line up with common interests, and I think all of that will start to come together. So I think that's the best way to find. It may not be the best way to find someone or the fastest way, but it's the best way to find the right person. And I think when you do that and you throw yourself into these things and all these projects and what you want to do, that person just kind of comes along, and it's oh, you're interested in that? You kind of marry up those interests, and you marry up those friends and all those things, and then it flows.
I love what he said there about being the best you that you can be, which will then attract the right people. I've gone through those waves, some of you out there, I'm sure, of going on a million dates, feeling nervous about it. I gotta go find somebody, gotta start swiping, I gotta go on dates and stuff, and it gets overwhelming. And I love Lee's advice. It's take that time, work on yourself, know yourself, and then once you're there, once you feel that freedom of no, I can be myself and I am who I am. I don't need to put on an act for a date, or I don't need to do this or that. You're just being yourself. Well, that's when somebody will see that light inside of you and go, there's something about this person I want to explore. Now, wrapping up the third piece of advice is Ashley. You all saw her in episode 2 with her husband, Chad, and Ashley's giving us a piece of advice for anybody out there that's already in a relationship and maybe moving towards something more serious. Ashley's going to talk to you about how to keep that love growing through communication.
I think something that's recently come up is really making sure the person that you're with and the person that you love, you tell them those positive things. And I think Chad and I have been together for coming on 9 years, and that seems like a long time. And I think sometimes life gets so busy, and especially if you have kids, your kid takes center focus so much at the time, and I think that's as it should be. But I think sometimes you really lose the focus with your partner, and to be honest, like the romance dies a little bit when you have a kid. And I think like making sure you keep that up and making sure like even it doesn't have to be a grand romantic gesture, as you know we're not good at, but like just making sure you like tell that person like why you appreciate them or like what you love about them, or like, you know, I really tried. Chad takes such good care of Milo and me, and like making sure he knows that. And like recently I've been like really sick with like morning sickness and just like really out of commission, and like he's taken on so much more of like the household responsibilities, and like I wanted to make sure like he knows that. So I think like I guess my biggest piece of advice is like acknowledging the person that you're with and like making sure they feel appreciated, because like I do appreciate him so much, and I feel like I don't want that to get lost, and like making sure he knows like why I love him, why I still love him. I think that's really important, especially like life gets busy, careers get busy, kids, like whatever is happening in your season of life, like making sure like at the end of the day, like your partner still knows like you love and acknowledge them and like appreciate them. I think that's important.
Man, I don't know about you, but every time I get these pieces of advice, they kind of get me excited and amped up to find my person. I just want to thank Ashley, Omar, and Lee for sharing that advice. I hope you learned something out there. I sure did. And let me know in the comments too if there's something else you want to know about. If there's some questions you want me to ask these couples as I'm interviewing them, trying to figure it out while you watch it happen. I keep forgetting to say this at the end. Make sure to subscribe, comment, send this to one of your friends, and follow along on the journey. Talk to you next week. Bye.